She was 9,000 pounds of African elephant standing chest deep in a river in South Carolina. He was a golden retriever puppy someone had abandoned on the property and never come back for. Nobody planned what happened next. Nobody could have. June and Scout found each other in the water, and what began as an accident became the most unlikely family either of them would ever know. Drop your city or country. In the comments, we love knowing how far these stories reach. She is standing in the middle of the river. 9,000 pounds. The water reaches her chest and catches the late afternoon light in small, bright flashes across her skin. She is not moving. She is waiting. On top of her head, balanced there like it is the most natural thing in the world, is a golden retriever. Ears forward, eyes fixed on something floating 20 feet away. A yellow tennis ball. The dog shifts his weight, leans forward, and launches himself off the top of her head into the open water. The splash sends rings across the surface. He surfaces, locks his jaw around the ball, and paddles back. She has not moved. He climbs back up paws, finding purchase on the rough skin, up the leg, the shoulder, the broad back, all the way to the top, and he sits there again, waiting. Because she is the one who throws, she curls her trunk around the ball, pulls it gently from his mouth, and launches it 30 feet across the water. He is already leaping before it lands. No trainer designed this. No keeper standing on the bank gave any command. This is simply what they did, every afternoon, for years. But to understand how it started, we have to go back to a different continent, to a time the world would rather forget. At the start of the 1970s, more than 1 million African elephants walked this earth, herds that darkened the savanna like moving weather, mothers with calves pressed against their legs, matriarchs leading families along paths their grandmothers had walked. By the end of the 1980s, more than half of them were gone. The ivory trade did not end with spears. It operated at industrial scale, military-grade weapons in the hands of commercial poachers, supplying demand from living rooms in Europe, Japan, and the United States. Piano keys, carved ornaments that sat on shelves while the animals they came from lay in the sun. The international ivory ban came in 1989, but by then, hundreds of thousands were gone, and thousands of calves had been left behind, standing beside bodies that would never rise again, unable to survive alone. Before we continue, wherever you are watching from right now, drop your city or country in the comments. It means a great deal to us to know how far these stories reach. Sometime around 1982, a baby elephant lost her family. We do not know the details. We only know what was recorded when she was eventually found 2 years old, 340 pounds, alone. The people who took her in described her condition in 2 words that say everything: impossibly small and helpless. She was placed on an airplane. A baby elephant, alone in a cargo hold, crossing the Atlantic Ocean to a country she had never seen. No familiar smell. No deep rumble of a herd beneath her feet. She landed in South Carolina at a 50-acre wildlife sanctuary. She was given a name: June. She was 2 years old. And from that moment forward, for the next 24 years, she would not see another elephant. Here is something most people do not consider when they look at a photograph of an elephant in a wildlife park. Is she alone in the wild? African elephants live in families of 8 to 15, led by a matriarch who carries the memory of every drought and every migration. Females stay with their birth families their entire lives, They communicate in frequencies below human hearing, infrasound vibrations that travel through the earth for miles, connecting herds across distances that seem impossible. An elephant is never truly alone in the wild. Even when she cannot see her family, she can feel them through the ground. Research published in Animal Behavior confirmed what anyone who has spent time with elephants already knows. Solitary elephants show elevated stress hormones. In isolation, they develop repetitive behaviors, swaying, head bobbing, aggression, the kind that in any other context would prompt immediate intervention. June had no other elephant. None. For 24 years, a creature built for touch, for the press of a familiar body beside hers. Alone. Think about that for a moment. Not a season, not a year, 24 years. And yet June did not break. She grew. From 340 pounds to 9,000, she became, by every account, the most responsive African elephant at the facility. Gentle in a way that seemed deliberate, as if she understood that the smaller creatures around her were fragile and needed her to be careful. Have you ever known someone like that? Someone who lost so much and somehow became gentler for it rather than harder? The cameras noticed. She appeared in a major Hollywood film in the mid-90s, alongside one of the most famous comedians of that era. She was photographed for magazines, featured in advertisements. A baby who had arrived as an orphan from a continent in crisis was now standing in front of film lights in South Carolina. And then the cameras would turn off. The visitors would leave, and June would walk back to the same grounds. The same river. The quiet that had always been there, without another trunk to touch hers. In 2007, a contractor was hired to build a swimming pool at the sanctuary. A simple job. He finished the work, collected his payment, and drove away. He left behind a golden retriever puppy a few months old, not yet named, not yet belonging to anyone, abandoned on the property, the way you set something down when you have decided it is no longer worth carrying. The staff found him wandering the grounds. They named him Scout. A contractor was hired to bring one kind of joy to a lonely elephant: water, weightlessness, a place to play, and in the process, without meaning to, he left behind something no pool could ever provide. Not water. A friend. Have you ever found something unexpectedly beautiful inside an act of carelessness? That is what this was, though nobody knew it yet. No camera was rolling for the first meeting. No keeper filmed the moment when a 9,000-pound elephant and a puppy first occupied the same stretch of river. We know the setting: a wide, calm waterway edged with tall trees, the kind of river where the light turns golden in the late afternoon. June had gone to that river every day for years. She would wade in slowly, let the water rise, and stand for hours. In the water, she was not 9,000 pounds. She was weightless. Scout found the river the way golden retrievers find all water, without hesitation, without strategy, without any consideration of whether this was appropriate. He simply ran, and at some point, in the hours that followed, Scout climbed June's leg. She let him. He found his footing up the shoulder, the back, all the way to the highest point, the broad plateau of her head. He sat there, balanced, looking out across the water. She stood perfectly still, not startled, not protesting, as if she had been waiting for something to arrive at the top of her, and it had finally come. Then Scout saw the tennis ball, 20 feet away, floating. He jumped. It became a game, then a ritual, then simply what they did. June would walk to the river. Scout would follow. She would pick up the tennis ball in her trunk with a precision that seemed impossible for something that size and throw it across the water. Scout would leap from her head, retrieve it, and climb back. She would tease him, sometimes hide her trunk behind her ear, spray water in his direction before finally taking the ball and throwing again. On the grass in warm afternoons, Scout would weave between June's legs. When June lowered herself to the ground, he would settle into the space between her trunk and her front legs and stay there, perfectly calm, looking out at the world from the safest place he had ever found. The staff noticed something above all else. Before Scout, June would go to the river, cool off, and leave. After Scout, she stayed. Hours. But only when Scout was with her. Think about what that means. An elephant who had gone to that river alone for 24 years suddenly would not enjoy it without a 60-pound dog beside her. The river had not changed. Something in her had. She knew, now, what it felt like to not be alone in it. Someone filmed them. The videos went up, and the world stopped. Hundreds of thousands of views. Then millions. News organizations covered the story. A photographer captured the image that traveled furthest Scout mid-leap off June's head. A yellow tennis ball visible in the water below him, the splash suspended in the air. It became one of the most shared animal photographs on the internet. Millions smiled, and almost no one asked what came before. Behind that image, behind the river and the tennis ball and 60 pounds of dog flying through the air, there was a massacre. There was an orphan on an airplane. There was a baby standing alone on a different continent with no mother and no herd and no future anyone could see. The world saw the splash. Very few people saw the silence that made the splash matter. The sanctuary itself became complicated. Its owner faced federal legal proceedings, and in late 2023 pleaded guilty to charges involving illegal wildlife trafficking and money laundering. In 2025, he received a federal prison sentence. Animal welfare organizations raised long-standing concerns about conditions at the facility, including June's situation. She had spent her entire life without another elephant and continued to be featured in paid visitor encounters. Some organizations called for her transfer to an accredited sanctuary where she could live among others of her kind. She is still there. This is where I do not have clean answers. Only questions. Did June have a good life? It is genuinely complicated. She was taken in when almost no infrastructure existed to save orphaned elephants during the height of the ivory crisis. She had space, a river, human caretakers who kept her alive for over 40 years. She had Scout, and she never had another elephant, never heard the infrasound rumble of a matriarch, did not once walk shoulder to shoulder in a line of gray bodies through tall grass. She did not have the ordinary, essential experience of just being near another creature who understood, without explanation, what it means to be what you are. She had a river. She had a friend. She never had a herd. Here is the math no one wants to do. African elephants live 60 to 70 years. Golden retrievers live 10 to 12. When Scout found June in 2007, June was already in her mid-20s. Scout was a puppy. He had a decade, maybe a little more. Every afternoon in that river was one fewer. Every throw of the tennis ball was one closer to the last. Neither of them knew this. Scout showed up each morning with the uncomplicated certainty of a dog who has found the thing he was made to do. The coverage of June and Scout spans from roughly 2013 to 2020. After that, the record goes quiet. It is now 2026. If Scout was a young puppy in 2007, he would be nearly 19 years old. The average golden retriever lives 10 to 12 years. I want to be honest with you. The probability that Scout is still alive is extremely low. And if he is gone, June has lost the only companion she ever truly found. Does she remember? Research in animal cognition has documented that elephants recognize companions after separations lasting decades. They return to places where family members died, sometimes years later, and touch what remains with the slow, deliberate attention they give to living members of their family. Elephants grieve. This is not sentiment. It is documented behavior, published in scientific journals. The hippocampus in an elephant's brain, the structure responsible for emotional memory, is proportionally larger than in almost any other land animal. They remember the sound of a specific voice after 30 years. The path to a water hole was visited once as a calf. The feel of a specific body against theirs. If an elephant can remember a water hole from 40 years ago, she can remember a friend who jumped off her head every afternoon for years. She remembers. That is not a saying. It is a neurological fact. And the river is the same river. And she still walks down to it. I keep coming back to one image. Not the numbers. Not the legal questions. June standing perfectly still in chest-deep water while 60 pounds of dog climbs to the highest point of her body and sits there, and she does not move, does not shake, does not shift even a fraction. A creature who could crush anything in her path, choosing instead to be the safest place in the world for an animal that weighs less than one of her legs. Neither of them chose South Carolina. Neither of them asked for what happened to their families. They were placed, by forces entirely outside their control, in the same 50 acres of land with a river running through it. And they found each other in the water. One act of carelessness, a contractor who drove away and left a puppy behind, created something no one planned. What June and Scout leave behind is simple to say and hard to actually believe. You do not have to be the same to be family. You do not have to come from the same place, share a species, or recognize each other's continent on a map. You just have to show up every day. At the river. That is what Scout said to June, without any words. He climbed those massive legs, sat on her head, and jumped, and jumped, and jumped again. Day after day, for no reason other than that he wanted to be there. June lost everything. Her mother, her herd, her continent. She spent 24 years as the only elephant in her world, and then a dog nobody wanted climbed to the top of her head and leaped. And the splash was the most beautiful sound she had heard in a long, long time. The IUCN African Elephant Specialist Group estimates the continental population at approximately 415,000, down from over 1 million in 1979. Roughly 20,000 are killed by poachers each year. According to WWF monitoring data, research published in Animal Cognition in 2023 confirmed that African elephants form lasting social bonds and exhibit measurable grief responses when those bonds are broken. The David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust in Kenya has rehabilitated hundreds of orphaned calves over 5 decades, with keepers sleeping beside them through the night to provide the social connection that orphans require for survival. More at Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. ARG. If this story touched you, leave a comment. Tell us what it made you feel. Share it with someone who needs a quiet, true story today. Subscribe if you are not already here. There are more of these coming. Every one of them is true in the ways that matter. A hook